Okay, Dark News. You sent me every damn screenshot you've got, including these recent ones for Damian Sebastian Nightwalker. You want my opinion on it. I'm going to make a video here for you to send, and I'm going to send these so you can upload. That gives you my honest opinion on it. First of all, he's delusional. He thinks you and me are the same person. He thinks you and me are this Joe and Joseph and some Miles guy. Well, you know, if you look at what he said, you can tell he's not sure who's who, what's what, that he's just slinging, as you keep saying, mud. He is desperate to prove that you and me are the same person, that we're Joe and we're Joseph, we're Miles, we're goody two-shoe thumb drops, and all that good horse crap. Because he needs validation. And what is the quickest way to get validation for a person like him in the vampire community? Prove somebody he is obsessed with, which is you, prove that you, me, Joe, Joseph, Miles, Garrett, and goody gumdrops out there somewhere are one and the same person. If he thinks if he can do that, he'll get all the validation he needs in the vampire community, and he'll get that respect and that adoration that he desperately needs. But it's not going to happen for a simple reason. I know for a fact you're not me, and I'm not you, and I'm not Joseph, I'm not Joe, and I'm not Miles. I can't say who your real name is because you've never told me it, and I've never asked. And I'm not going to ask because it's none of my business. But here is the thing. If a person was to go through every screenshot you've got of the shit he said and your counters to it and the stuff he said to that, they would see a person, as you have pointed out, and I've looked through the screenshots and I can verify this, has changed his amount of time he's been in the vampire community, as you put it, from the 80s, and you put it, I know for a fact he said, the 80s. You point out, he said something about 93, there's 95, there's 99, there's 30 years, there's 20 years, there's 10 years. Now, here's the thing. When you really started on YouTube, really started hammering him, his replies got hectic. And when you start calling him out on the tenure thing, he started trying to say, oh, that was a text error, blah, 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 and all that kind of stuff. And then when he said a bunch of stuff go on, when he realized how stupid he sounded, instead of erasing that and starting over, he just kept going with it and putting there stuff about how that was really a trap, he said. And he's still running with that. It's a trap that he said. Well, anybody that has got any tenure, yeah, he did try to say that's what he said. It was actually saying. But anybody that's got any tenure in the vampire community, whether it's the offline vampire community or the online vampire community, or like me with both, is going to spot real quick the fact that his timeline has jumped all over the place. You know, matter of fact, to be honest with you, anybody reading his stuff, once you get it in if you could get it in an organized manner by date that he said it, would soon see his timeline, as far as how long he's been in the vampire community, is all over the place. But the big thing is the 10-year time that he claimed that he's been there. That one, he keeps harping on, more than any other thing. And I've come to the conclusion, and it's the same damn one you've come to, that is the actual time that he has been in community legitimately. And I'm not talking, when I say in the community, I'm not talking just online. I'm talking actually trying to go out to events and stuff. Going to clubs, that kind of stuff. I believe, I just don't believe that he's legitimately been in the physical real world. Well, there ain't much of a physical real world community anymore because everybody's wants to rent venues and stuff. Nobody wants to take the time hardly to open a strict goth vampire only nightclub. They want to once a month or twice a month rent somebody else's space. That is a big problem because problem in the community. There's no real big community like it was in the 90s up through the early 2000s because the fucking internet destroyed that. I mean, how often do you see actual dedicated goth or vampire clubs? Hardly any. I mean, there's no infrastructure to support a vampire community now like it was then. You would literally have to rebuild, start reopening. People would literally have to start reopening vampire clubs all over the place, goth clubs all over the place. That was strictly that. Now, where was I at? Oh yeah. He honestly believe prior to 10 years ago was not actually in the offline vampire community. I think if he went out to club stuff, he wrangled somebody into paying his way in. If he went to events, he wrangled some way to pay his first entry into it. But 10 years, I think his 10-year mark is the legitimate time frame for him actually having gone and gotten into the real world vampire community based on how the hell he's panicking around there. Every time you bring it up, he panics around it and he keeps bringing it up himself, trying to make it sound like it was something like it was something other than what it come out as. In other words, he said 10 years, you caught him on it, and now he's in a panic over it, trying to explain why 10 years was a fake thing. It was a trap. All right. And yeah, I believe that's how long he's been in the vampire community. 10 years. And he caught himself in a trap. All right. He trapped himself. Now he's stuck with all this big screwed up timeline where he bounces all over the place. But, and here's the but, the one thing that he's panicking over out of it all is 10 years. Him saying he'd been in it for 10 years. Why would anybody panic that hard over a mistake when somebody calls out? All they have to say is, look, and instead of doing that and turn around and trying to explain it away as it was a trap, it was a mistake and he turned it into a trap. Nobody takes this, it was a mistake, but I decided to turn it into a trap. Nobody does that. They either just admit it was a mistake, or they shut up and they don't keep bringing it up and trying to make it say like it was a mistake. So yes, he's a phony, he's a fraud. Now, what has he actually done in the vampire community? All right. There are no books by Damian Sebastian Nightwalker about vampirism, about the history of the vampire community. There is no organizations run by him as the founder or anything like that. Now, he'd probably see this and say, well, what about you? I'm in the middle of writing a book. I've got a print-on-demand company that, I'm not saying I got it as in I own it. I'm saying I got my eye on. I'm reading up on to see if I want to go with it, because I don't want to go with a company like Wiser or Llewellyn, because I know enough about the publishing industry, despite having never had a book published. Then I know enough about it to know that they will edit stuff when it comes to your book to cut down the length of it, to cut stuff out that they don't think should be in it. And personally, I don't see the reason behind somebody else having the authority to fuck up your work. I'm sure, for instance, take Stephen King's book, Salem's Lot, one of my all-time favorite vampire novels and movies. I'm pretty much sure the book would have been better if an editor hadn't have edited stuff out of it. And wanted, oh, well, you know, we don't think this should be in here, blah, 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 causing him to change the story. Because you'd be surprised how many rewrites a writer actually goes through to get the book story to where it can be published. All because of editors. Stuff like that. Well, no thank you. I have my beliefs, I have my codes of conduct, so forth and so on, and I am not going to compromise on it. So I've got a couple of, one in particular I'm looking at. It's a print-on-demand company that I plan on trying to get it published through once I've done all my research on it and how to get the book sent to them. And then on top of that, I'm going to found my own organization that the book will be the teachings of. And it's going to be a left-hand path vampire organization. And it's not really meant to work within the confines of the vampire community. It is, well, let's put it this way, going to be designed, built to create a parallel community. Because let's face it, the community as it is commercialized. It's, well, looking for Chamber of Commerce. Yep, that's right, Chamber of Commerce acceptability. The vampire community we have today traded its soul for money and acceptability. So when I found my own organization, it's going to be also found a parallel community with its own events that anybody can afford, its own nightclubs, its own businesses. We're not going to bow down to corporate vampire HQ New York or anything like that. And now back to Dom. When it comes to that, we'll get back to Damian Nightwalker right here. If he doesn't like it, well, that's too bad for him to go sit on a wooden stake. Because unlike him, I have a vision what I want to do. I'm going to achieve it. He'll be 10, 20 years from now online still spreading lies about himself. But if people can look back to now, they could be like going, damn, his story about himself has changed even more. Because I'm pretty sure if we could go back and get the receipts from MySpace as the stuff he's claimed and said, what he says now about himself probably is far different than what he said then. Probably far more exaggerated. One thing I will say about myself, when I say the month, the day, and the year that I was initiated into vampirism and vampire coven, if I live to be 100 years old, and I'm 53 right now, if I live to be 100 years old, it will still be the same thing because it is reality. It is fact. It is not his fantasy he spins. That's why he cannot keep what he said correct. That's why he can't keep a single year as to when he got into the vampire community accurate. That being said, goodbye.